Okay, so I'm watching this video, man, and this has been a thing that's been around for a very long time. Will Chamberlain coming out and commenting on Michael Jordan's status as the greatest basketball player ever. And obviously, I mean, if you've watched any of Wilt's videos pertaining to this conversation, you know where his stance is on the situation. He views himself as the greatest basketball player ever. And, you know, well, as a competitor, I mean, you wouldn't expect anything less of an all-time great player. Okay, you wouldn't expect them to say, "No, I wasn't that good. I don't think I could play today." You wouldn't say that. I think. Do I think Wilt could average the numbers that he averaged back then? Now, no. And the main reason why is because players are bigger. Players are bigger. Players are stronger. Players are faster. Okay? I won't say players are tougher, but players physically are far more advanced than where they were. When Will played, and this is, I actually wrote a comment in this comment section where I stated why I believed Wilt to be an overrated player. Because a lot of people talk about how great this dude was and how people just ignore the fact that he was as good as he was. And there's a reason for that. I mean, this dude was dominant in an era where there wasn't as many teams as there are now. So that means just by pure volume, you're going to have less competition. Okay? And not only that, but if you go back to the 60s, 50s, 60s, you know, kind of in the 70s, look at the basketball players. A lot of them are undersized. Most of them, like I put in the comment, they look like fit bankers. They look like bankers that go to the gym, and when they're not banking, they're playing NBA games. Like most of them had side jobs, just like in the NFL back in the 50s, 60s. They had side jobs. They were out pushing insurance or medical equipment or some shit. Vacuum cleaner salesmen. Like they had they had other jobs. So when you see a Jim Brown, when you see a Gale Sayers, when you see a Wilt Chamberlain dominate on these highlight reels, it's a reason for that, bro. Like it's like you're putting a freight train on a field full of children. What can anybody do with that? But because, you know, we idolize these players growing up, I mean, we don't want to look at the harsh truth that is, I mean, it was easy for this dude to accumulate those kind of stats when you have such a significant height advantage and when you have such a significant athleticism advantage over everybody else. And that's not Wilt's fault. It's not Wilt's fault that the league just wasn't up to par to where he was. Now this is where I get stern in my position of Wilt being overrated, because when you look at a Bill Russell who was 6'9", to Wilt 7'1" or something like that. When you or 7'2", I forgot what he was. But when you look at Bill Russell, 6'9", okay? And look how dominant he was. Now, he wasn't an offensive dynamo where, you know, I mean, he's averaging like 30 points a game or nothing like that. But I mean, just defensively. And this is why growing up I love defense, because it's like a chess match with the offense versus the defense, which side can outsmart the other and ultimately take over the game. I think, you know, in these sports, when you get to the highest level of competition, the more defenses play a significant factor. Even now where the league is predominantly offensively driven, defense still, a great defense can trump a great defense can trump a great offense any day of the week. I just believe that. Okay, but I don't know. I feel like Wilt is overrated, man. I feel like he's overrated. I also made a comparison. I used to do this. I used to when I would play 2K, what I would do is I would erase all the players on every team, and I would just fill the rosters up with 60s and 70s and a bunch of these really average, below average players, right? Just to start the league over again, right? And then I'll throw, a player I created on one of those teams. Now, when I play the game, and this is just an example of how I really believe this guy, like, this is why he dominated, I would average like 40, 50 points a game. I would average about 20. I would have 20 rebounds like just after halftime broke. Like once you come back into the third quarter, maybe around a halfway point of the third quarter, I'm up over 20 rebounds. Like, it was easy to accumulate stats when versus most of the competition, you're just better than them. Okay? That is not a clear, concise reason why you're the greatest basketball player ever. Now, in his era, you could put him up there. But again, even though he was so dominant, he still failed against guys like, well, no, he still failed against one guy. Bill Russell. Bill Russell, when it mattered most, dominated this dude, man. Dominated this guy. And when he finally won, he joined a team full of other Hall of Fame players, and they were able to get the job done. Reminds you of somebody? I made the comparison. LeBron James would be a modern-day Wilt Chamberlain. A phenomenal athlete, incredibly intelligent player who could put up all the flashiest, greatest numbers in the world, but still fall short. And that was LeBron for like the first 9 years, I think, or 7 years, or nine is something like that. For the first damn near 10 years of his career, LeBron was Wilt Chamberlain. He would put up phenomenal numbers. He would put up phenomenal games. I mean, you would watch his games just to watch this dude play because he was so entertaining. But they wouldn't win. And I know what people are going to say. Oh, that's because LeBron didn't have the talent that some of these other teams had. I mean, you know, he didn't have the teammates. He didn't have the talent around him. This is why he couldn't win. Okay. And there are plenty of teams, when you go back and look at them, wasn't chock full of star talent, didn't have one superstar. Look at the Detroit Pistons in 04 when they beat the Los Angeles Lakers with Shaq and Kobe. And the Detroit Pistons beat them. You got a journeyman in Chauncey Billups. You bring him to the team, right? You already got Tayshaun Prince, who is he's like Kawhi, a light-skinned Kawhi Leonard from back in the mid-2000s, right? And you got Ben Wallace, one of the greatest looking afros I've ever seen in my life. Ben Wallace over there, a defensive player. He was basically Dwight Howard before Dwight Howard became Dwight Howard, right? Like but they just couldn't win. Detroit they were a joke, right? So then you bring in Chauncey Billups. You already had, I think they already brought in at that point Rasheed Wallace, who was one of the best power forwards at that point, right? And then you get Rip Hamilton from Washington, right? So you bring Rip Hamilton in, you bring Chauncey Billups in, you acquire at some point Rasheed Wallace. So now you have, and nobody's expecting anything from this team, but they managed to make it to the finals. They beat the Lakers. And this is without a superstar player. Even when we look back on that team now, they still don't have a person you look at and say, well, he became a superstar. No. You know why they won? Because they played good basketball. They played smart basketball. They were a great defensive team. Okay? Team. And this is the problem with LeBron James, and this was the problem with Wilt. You can't win with one guy. Now, as much as people want to say that LeBron makes his teammates better, and LeBron averages damn near a triple-double every season. Sorry, I'm a little sick. LeBron averages almost a triple-double, every season. LeBron alienates his teammates. I can't tell you how many times I've brought this up in videos where I would say the way LeBron James plays basketball underutilizes the skills that his teammates have more than they accentuate the skills of his teammates. If you are a career bench player, if you're a guy that's used to just sitting at the end of the bench on teams and they'll call you in for like 5 minutes during each game or whatever, like, he will make you look better than you've been. He will make you look better. But if you're already established NBA player like a Dwayne Wade or a Kevin Love, a Chris Bosh, or somebody like that, your role, seriously diminishes. So, I'm not going to get into it again. But this is what I'm saying. Wilt is the same way, bruh. Wilt is the same way. He's uber talented, uber talented, man. Like you can't say it enough. He's incredibly talented. But this is in an era where it wasn't that hard, man. Like I'm just saying, if I was an NBA player today, like I would dominate. Like James Harden. James Harden would have such a significant speed advantage over the guys that's playing back then that it would be hilarious to watch him play against those the guys from the 50s and the 60s back then. It would be hilarious. I mean, it would be hilarious. But I don't know, man. Let's watch a little bit of this. I just went through 10 minutes going on a rant. I'm sorry. Let's do it.
He asked Michael Jordan a few months ago. He said, Michael, now don't be, shy and don't be this and don't be that. Are you the best basketball player to ever play? And Michael said, yes, I am. Michael Jordan.
And let me say this, man. Michael Jordan, in my opinion, and I'm a casual basketball fan, but from what I've seen, Michael Jordan is arguably the greatest basketball player we will ever see. I mean, you talk about a guy who was 6'6". That's it. 6'6". In an era where big men were dominating everything. You talk about Shaq. You talk about David Robinson, Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley. All these big men around. Shawn Kemp. All these big men around. And 6'6" shooting guard Michael Jordan put fear in. I don't care what any player says. When you know that you're about to play Michael Jordan, man, I'm sorry, something has to go through your mind. Like, ugh. That has to be your initial reaction when you realize, all right, I got Jordan next game. So, I mean, he was the greatest. He was the greatest offensive player, the greatest offensive force at that time. I would say he was the greatest defensive force, because you're talking about a guy at his small stature who, I mean, he wasn't defending centers, but he had a knack for being a pest on defense. Getting steals, being able to lock up the guards that he's going up against, getting in the mind of his opponents. Like, I mean, dude was a phenomenal defender. So you're talking about the best offensive player, arguably the best defensive player, who has some of the most sound techniques. Such a technical player. I mean, bruh.
And you, for a while, went back and forth.
Yeah, he's at a different level of celebrity, isn't he? Only because of the different kinds of media exposure that he's been given. If the two of you were in a room together, where do you think your conversation would focus? The two of you.
Well, first,
we're at the NBA's all-time team celebration, Cleveland, 1997. And over in the corner is Wilt and Michael Jordan. And they're sitting at a table.
And I get why Wilt is upset. I get why this conversation kind of irritates him. You can see it in his face. He like, oh, all these people are out here, cheering and clapping. But they're only cheering and clapping at the idea of what I was able to accomplish when I played. None of these people, I'm pretty sure, has ever seen me play. And I get that I would think that would hurt. When you're in a profession that is supposed to generate the kind of buzz and popularity, and you get adoring fans, stuff like that. You're supposed to be generating that kind of stuff. For that not to be as prevalent in your era as it is now, or back in the 90s, where now, I mean, you have TVs covering stuff. I mean, you got the radio covering stuff. You got, the internet wasn't there yet, but you see what I'm saying? Like, it's a bigger scale now. And like, if you had that back when you played, maybe you would have been more acknowledged for what it is you was able to bring to the game. And I can see how that would make somebody feel forgotten. And I get why. That's why Wilt has to have these moments where he has to feel like he has to put Michael Jordan in his place. Because he's like, listen, man, like, I played too. And I was dominant in my era, just like Michael was dominant in his. And if we're talking about the stat game, of course, Wilt Chamberlain would destroy Michael Jordan's stats. But again, there's a reason why he was able to accumulate all the stats that he was able to. So it wouldn't be a fair fight. That's like me saying I got more hits in baseball versus a guy that has only one arm and one eye. Like, it's not really a fair assessment of ability. Because I'm pretty sure if Michael Jordan, was as athletic as Wilt Chamberlain and was at 7'2", I believe Michael Jordan could have been even far more dominant than what he was. But, hey.
Arguing vociferously as to who the greatest player of all time was. And they're back and forth. And just intense as can be.
Hey, does it steam you that Michael Jordan gets paid so much, and you were 10 times the player he is, and you never got that kind of big money?
He wasn't 10 times, and this is why I hate Howard Stern, bro. I mean, the shit that comes out of this guy's mouth is ridiculous. He was not 10 times the player that Michael Jordan was. If anything, they're on equal footing. But the one thing that would separate Michael from Wilt was that he was able to dominate his era via titles. Wilt wasn't able to do that. There was another guy that was able to do that over him. Like, come on.
You ever say to yourself, am I better than him? Do you consider yourself...
Yeah, is he better than you were?
It bothers you when people talk about him as being the greatest player of all time.
No, it bothers me because we all have our opinions, and I don't think that commensurate with what he's doing, what he's done, and how the game is going today, that he's better than a number of people.
I contend Michael Jordan is the greatest.
And I would love to know what he meant by that. The way the game is going today, because I would think the 90s had to be pretty balanced. I mean, you had your physical side. I mean, you had some guys that could just fill it up. It wasn't like before the 3-point shot was introduced. It was pretty even. And this is why Michael Jordan, in my opinion, is the greatest player ever. Because in a league where there's just so much, the league is incredibly riddled with talent. I mean, he just stood out above everybody else. I mean, he birthed a new generation of basketball in the early 2000s. The style we call hero ball, that you see Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, kind of LeBron, like early on before he started to go into his Mr. I'm like Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson combined or some crap like that. But I mean, you notice it. Tracy McGrady, the hero ball thing. But let's go.
Basketball player who ever lived. I would put you number 2 only because you only won 2 championships. Now people are going to say, well, you know what? He had a lot of stats and this and that. You won 2 world championships, okay?
I have a friend of mine who I talk to about once a week. You know what he says about Michael's 4 championships? He doesn't say anything about it. Because he has 11.
And this is where I think that he completely kills his conversation as I was better than Michael Jordan. Because you have to go to the accomplishments of somebody else to negate any kind of argument or criticism towards you or what you perceive to be towards you. And you have to use somebody else's accomplishments to make that argument for you. Even though the guy was just talking about his numbers and the records that he was able to set. But he's like, you know what? My friend who's accomplished more than me in a game that we call professional sports, where the sole purpose of you playing the sport is supposed to be for titles, he doesn't say anything about it. But this has nothing to do with Russell. Russell speaks when Russell feels the need to speak. This is about Wilt Chamberlain, and I felt like that was a cop out. And I'm pretty sure deep down, even though he doesn't want to admit it out loud, Wilt knows, listen, I was great in my time, but my time is over. I wasn't even the most dominant of my time, like people portrayed me. Like, he wasn't. Otherwise, he'd be like a 10-time NBA champion.
Russell, I don't think you can predicate how great a guy really is, or because he has championships. There's a lot of guys on those championships.
And you know who makes these arguments? The guys that don't have the championships, or the guys that don't have as many championships as the person that they're trying to compare themselves to. So Though, like, that makes no sense to me. Professional sports is about winning, right? So if you win titles, I would think that makes you at least the greatest of that season, the best of that season, because you won the ultimate prize. Your team won the ultimate prize, right? Why is that? Like, people are trying to negate that because it doesn't help the argument, man. You play to win the game. This is what Herm Edwards said. The legendary quote, you play to win the game. So if you can't get the job done, I mean, whose fault is that? And Wilt was averaging 50 points and 30 rebounds, 40 rebounds, something like that. I mean, this dude was liable to go off for 70 or 80, no problem. That's half a team's points, more than half a team's points. You mean to tell me that you wasn't getting nothing from your teammates? I need to go back and I need to, if I can, look up box scores and see the shot disparage, because I'm starting to think that maybe the shot output was not as not as fair as I would think with a guy averaging 50 points a game and his team still not being able to win titles. But let's go.
Who've done nothing.
The greatest scorer of all time? Not even. Would you even give him that?
Well, you see, what people don't remember was that my first 7 years, I scored a lot of points.
Bro, look at the dudes he's going up against, man. Like, they look so overmatched.
So a lot of guys on those championship teams who've done nothing.
The greatest scorer of all time? Not even. Would you even give him that?
Well,
Look how skinny, how frail they look. And he's standing at a decent 7'2", and he looks like he maybe weighs about 240, 250, maybe. He looks pretty lean. He definitely looks like a track star. Like, he has the build of somebody that runs track.
Oh, you see, people don't.
And look at the guys that's defending him, man. Look, when he stands up, he hopped a little bit upwards. But if you just take him a couple inches down, he's easily standing half a foot over that dude's head, man. And look at his arms, bro. They're almost the size of this dude's upper body. Like, it's crazy how tall, how athletic that he was versus the dudes that he played against.
Was that my first 7 years, I scored a lot of points. Then I stopped scoring on my own volition. I tried to do other things. I was asked to do other things, and that's what I did.
Bro, that's
so
LeBron,
if I had continued to score,
that is LeBron.
I was probably averaging 40 points for my whole lifetime.
That's LeBron,
Does that
bro.
make me the best scorer? I really don't know. But one thing I do know, that all the years while I was usually scoring all those points, I was leading the league in percentile shooting. And that's also important.
That means nothing. That means percentile shooting, which means shot percentages, field goal percentages. The reason why he probably led the league in field goal shooting was because all his shots came down below the rim. It came at the rim on hook shots, layups, dunks. I mean, there wasn't a 3-point shot back then, so you didn't really need to shoot. To be honest, this is why the mid-range game and getting your points at the basket isn't as utilized anymore, because, if you standing that far out there and there's no 3-point shot out there, you might as well just attack the rim, man. You might as well just get as close to the basket as you can and shoot the ball. And this is the same thing with LeBron James, man. When people talk about how he shoots 50% from the field, why do you think that is, bruh? He is a low post demon, bro. This is what he does, and so is Wilt.
Because if you take all the shots, then you should be.
He also, and probably in those seasons, he also averages about 20 or 30 shots per game. And if he's making about anywhere close to the amount of shots that let's say, for instance, if he shoots 30 shots in a game and he makes about 20 or 25, he's going to leave that game with a phenomenal field goal percentage. But all of those points come from low post shot attempts. And when you go back and you look at the highlights of him scoring down low, most of the time it's just him shooting over a dude or running past somebody. It didn't even look like they were trying to defend him. I mean, all right, let's go.
Getting the highest percentage. So when they compare me with Michael's averaging 31 points for his lifetime. I average about 30 points for a lifetime. But I stopped scoring. I know that basketball is a team game, right? And you've already made Michael number one. Mm-hmm. But if you had to have Wilt against Michael, my prime and his prime, how much money would you be willing to bet?
Man, hold up. Are we talking one-on-one or team basketball? I'm assuming we're talking team basketball. And what are we talking? His Sixers team or his Warriors team, whatever you want to call them, versus Michael's Bulls? I don't know, bruh. I don't know. I think Wilt's athleticism will give him an advantage over a lot of the standing statues as far as big men, because there wasn't too many agile big men. You're talking about Hakeem and David Robinson, guys that could move around, man. Guys that could Shaq, guys that could move. Guys like that, I think Wilt would struggle. But a lot of guys like Bill Cartwright, I think the Winnington dude, I forgot his name, Charles Oakley, guys like that, they'll struggle. They'll struggle against Wilt. Because I don't think they have the athleticism or the foot speed to be able to deny him. They would have to get physical with him. Now, can he handle the physicality of the 90s? I'm not so sure about that. Because when you go back and you look at his body, he has a runner's body. You can't put a runner on a football. And when people used to bring up Usain Bolt playing NFL football, it would always baffle me, because I'm like, if he gets hit one good time, I mean, Usain probably would quit. You know, because you can't take a runner in a non-contact sport, throw him on the field, and the first time he get touched, expect him to. I like this. No. Come on, no.
He's 6'7" and he's like 197 pounds. Mm-hmm. Coming into what we call our domain, the pivot for us big guys, would not have been very wise of Michael. You know, if he was playing doing.
Michael played in the era of some of the best big men in the history of the game. And I just named a few of them. I mean, you're talking about John Sally, Bill Laimbeer, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Robert. I believe Robert Parrish was maybe still in Boston when he played against that team. Maybe. But then you talk about Shaq, David Robertson, Hakeem. You talk about, well, not Charles. You talk about Dennis Rodman. Larry Johnson. Antoine, not Antoine, what the hell? Alonzo Mourning. Jesus. I kept saying Antonio in my head over and over again. Alonzo Mourning, like Patrick Ewing, bro. He played against some of the biggest monsters in the game, bro. Shaq. I keep forgetting Shaq. Dikembe Mutombo. And I'm pretty sure if you go back and look at the numbers against those teams, man, like he was dominating, bro. Like, come on, man. Come on, bro.
Our time. So we would say, Michael, you know, as long as you do all those fancy things outside of where we are, that's fine. You think you can...
If Michael played in the 50s and 60s, he would feast. He's already not really a three-point shooter. Not saying he can't shoot the three ball. I hate when people do that. It's just, it wasn't a big part of his game, bro. But I'm pretty sure that if he really wanted to shoot the three ball, he would master that shit. And you even saw it later on in his career where he started taking more three-point shots. He got really good at that. So I hate when people try to do that. But if he played in the 50s or 60s, like against that talent, bro, like he would kill them. Like he would murder them. I would not be surprised if he averaged about 40, 45, maybe even 50 points a game. Because you're talking about how fast he is, how fierce he is on defense, how athletic he is. Now, as far as what Wilt's saying about him, you know, causing Jordan some pain by really getting all up in his shit, Detroit did that too. Detroit did that. They did that. And to the credit of the Detroit Pistons, even, you know, Mike has said this already, it forced him to evaluate his game and do something different. All right? So he changed up the way he played. He started to incorporate his teammates a little more. He stopped playing the hero ball style that he pretty much made famous in the early 2000s and started playing a team aspect of ball where he's trying to uplift his teammates rather than demean them when they get on his nerves or some shit like that. But I'm talking like if he played in the 50s or 60s, there's no way you'll make me believe that he would struggle, bro. He would destroy those guys. And you're talking about having 2 rounds of basketball, 2 rounds of playoffs. You know, you talk about like 10, 12 teams in the league, bro. Come on, man. Jordan would feast. Jordan would feast.
Being Michael in your prime, he would take the outside. He shoots from the three-point arc. Then you try to...
Everybody thinks their era of basketball is the best era of basketball.
Come on, get him. He'd dribble around you.
I run 109.5, 100 meters around 10.2 and then in that area.
52 vertical. A 50.
And again, he's doing this against unathletic dudes who probably drink and smoke after games, before games. Like, come on, bro. Like, that has to be taken into consideration, man. Like, they wasn't taking care of themselves like a lot of these dudes are now. A lot of these dudes are investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into their treatment in the off season, and a lot of those guys, I'm pretty sure, wasn't as concerned about it.
Inch vertical jump. By the way, what's Michael Jordan's vertical jump? Do we know?
I don't think it's quite that high.
Not as high.
Bench press almost 600 pounds.
You're talking about an athletic dude at 7'2". Of course you're going to jump high as hell. Why wasn't you able to win more? This is my thing. Like, I don't understand why this is... Why aren't these dudes asking them these questions? If you were so damn dominant, why didn't you win more, bruh? Like, ask them that. This is what I want to ask Aaron Rodgers, who thinks he's just the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? If you're so great, you got all these great numbers and you don't throw as many interceptions, you do all these great things on the field, how come you didn't win more? And I always ask this because I think it's a great question to ask people who think these ridiculous things when it comes to these players. Just like LeBron, man. If LeBron is so damn great, why didn't he win more? Why? Like, I don't know, bro. Come on.
Michael would probably be going...
Wait a minute, 600 pounds?
600 pounds.
You think he'd have been crushed, is what you're saying?
I don't think. I know you've been crushed. Right, yeah. So it wouldn't have been good for Michael. If I came into the NBA and destroyed it, my tools were so dominant that they frightened people.
You were Jordan before Jordan.
But again, the only time he won a title, the only time he was able to capture a championship was after Bill already retired. I believe Bill retired once he won. And after he left Philadelphia and went to LA to play with Jerry West and some of those other guys.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't even like to say Jordan before Jordan because Jordan's come behind a whole lot of us as far as I'm concerned.
Wilt, who always has the last word in everything. Wilt looked at...
Because he comes off as brash, braggadocious, conceited. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you ask Mike, even if he might have choice words behind the scenes, behind closed doors, whatever, out in public, if you ask Mike about these dudes, about these legends that came before him, he's even said it. You know, his favorite player was Dr. J. And I'm pretty sure if you ask him about Wilt Chamberlain, he would have nothing but the most respectful of comments going towards that guy. You know, like, I don't understand. Like, I get it, bruh. I get it. Your time was forgotten. People don't even, like... I watched some videos of people reacting to the things that Michael Jordan was able to do in these highlight videos, and they're surprised. Like, just like Larry Bird, man. Most kids nowadays think that Larry Bird was nothing but a stationary three-point shooter from back in the 80s. That's it. But then when they go back and they look at his highlight reel and see what he was capable of doing, you can see the surprise in their face. Everybody gets forgotten in time, bro. Like, everybody gets forgotten. And I don't know. Like, you can't fight it. You can't fight it because then you start to demean yourself a little bit, and I think that's what Wilt is doing, man. Like he's putting himself out there because he doesn't want to be forgotten. He does not want to be just another page that people skip when they're reading books, and I get that, and it's sad, man, because it's like that's when people say they want to live forever. That's the only way possible you can is in the memories of people that remember you after you gone, and it's hard for him, and I get it. But to demean somebody who probably has nothing but the utmost respect for you and what you were able to do, come on, bro. Like, it doesn't paint you in a very colorful picture. Like, you look jealous. You look jealous. You look salty. You look butthurt, and that's not the way I want to remember Wilt Chamberlain. But it is what it is. I'm gonna finish this video up and then I'm done.
Michael said,
Michael, until you are so great that they start changing the game to stop your greatness, then I don't think you have a right to make that accolades in that particular way.
Look, I think Wilt was a great player in his era that not only redefined what it was to be a big man, because, I mean, I'm pretty sure guys, like, when guys look at big men and they look at some of the best big men from back in that time, I mean, you are looking at guys like Bill Russell, George Mikan, people like that. I believe Bob Pettit was around that time as well, unless he was in the 70s. I can't remember. Listen, I get it. And you redefine what it was to be, just like Shaq started to redefine what it was to be a big man. Like, you're a pioneer. A lot of these young dudes, like a James Wiseman, Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, Wilt was the version of them before they got here. But when your time is over, man. Time forgets everybody eventually, man. Time forgets everybody. And you just gotta live in the sun while you can until the shadow is cast, and then it's just it for you. But that's it, man. I mean, this video was already too damn long, man. 37. God damn, bro. But that's it, man. All right.